The ideal macros for fat loss. Sean here from Fit Fusion Brotherhood. I own a gym for 10 years. I've coached thousands of clients and everyone wants to know what is the perfect macro distribution. For anyone who started counting calories, you understand the importance of macros and you've probably tried to balance them out a million times, finding out that perfect equation for you. I've done this myself. I've done that with a bunch of other clients as well. So I'm going to try to simplify things for you and make things equally effective with probably less than half the work. So I'm going to talk about a strategy that I use with my clients now. Now I've done the whole balancing all the macros and the calories together before, and of course it works, but it is kind of a pain in the butt and it's not so easy. So we're going to simplify it. First and foremost, you got to get your calories on point. So know where your calories are, make sure you're tracking that. That's not what this video is about. So in terms of macros, there's only one macro I actually track. The other ones can be discretionary, but there is a third or fourth element here that isn't necessarily a macro that I do track that is super important during fat loss. So let's talk about that one first. The one thing that I track that is not a macro is fiber. I track fiber because the more you're in a fat loss phase, the less fiber you're probably going to get. And this can have problems with your digestion, but also impacting how full you feel and your fat loss. So making sure that you're prioritizing fiber is super important. This is also going to impact kind of how your macro distribution is going to be as well. So if you find that your fiber intake is low, you can actually supplement it with psyllium husk or some sort of supplement that's going to help you with your fiber. But I've made the mistake a million times before of going in a fat loss phase and not prioritizing fiber, and I can tell you it sucks. So don't be that guy. Make sure you prioritize fiber. Depending where you're at, anywhere between 25 to 40 grams of fiber per day. You can track this on your MyFitnessPal or whatever app you're using as well. So that's the one thing I track, and it's not a macro. The macro that I track, hopefully this is not a surprise, is protein. So protein is not just important, it is essential. So if you're going to prioritize fat loss, you have to prioritize protein. I always aim for 0.8 grams of protein per ideal pound of body weight. So you can do the math yourself, but just under 1 gram per pound of body weight of your ideal weight. This is going to help you feel full for longer. This is going to help you burn additional calories, and it's going to help with your building muscle and repairing the muscle during your recovery as well. So protein is non-negotiable in our books. It's the one thing that I do track. That is the one thing when it comes to macros that you should be prioritizing. So 0.8 grams per pound of ideal body weight is what you should be aiming for. So you got your calories, you got your fiber ideally, you got your protein. Now carbs and fat, they can be discretionary. So you don't have to stress about balancing everything out. I wouldn't go zero with any of them. So I'm gonna give you some of the benefits, the pros and the cons, and maybe where you should be at with each one of these. When it comes to carbs, the big benefit here is going to be your performance and just your overall well-being in terms of how you feel. Now, what I will acknowledge is some people are a lot more carb sensitive than others. But what carbs should do is they should help make your workouts feel a lot better. They should make you feel a little bit more energetic and your mood should be better. But not everyone's carb sensitive or not everyone's carb tolerant. So the test that I like to say is relatively subjective, but if you were to have a really high carb meal, so maybe like an entire large pizza or something like that, or a dessert, and you give yourself a couple hours or even almost right away, do you feel bloated or do you feel more ripped? Because someone who is really insulin sensitive, someone who's really good with carbs is actually going to feel better after a high carb meal. Someone who is more carb intolerant is going to feel sluggish, you're going to feel bloated, you're not going to feel great. So someone who is more carb sensitive, I would go a bit lower. Someone who is more carb tolerant, I would bring them up higher. But once again, it's your call. There's no right or wrong. You can absolutely succeed with a lower carb diet. You can absolutely succeed with a higher carb diet. If you're carb tolerant, I would highly recommend bringing those carbs up. Now, I know the general ratio percentage-wise would be like a 40-30-30 in terms of protein, carbs, fat, or even flip that with protein and carbs, or even just a split 1/3 throughout the ratio here, but I always like to focus on just the protein and allowing the other two to kind of fall as they may because it can get a little bit overwhelming. And then the final macro that we haven't talked about yet would be fat. So fats are crucial for metabolic health, but most importantly for your hormonal function, which is why you never want to go super low fat. Now the danger here with fat is a lot more calorie dense than protein and carbs. So fat has 9 calories per gram, whereas protein and carbs have 4 calories per gram, which means each gram of fat that you're having is more than double the amount of calories that you're getting from your carbs and your protein. Now, there are some good sources that you should consider, but keep in mind they can go over the top That's why it's super important to track your calories. We're talking olive oil, avocado, healthy nuts. A lot of these really healthy fats can be good for you, and we recommend that you never go down to zero or even super low. So you can be a little bit more discretionary. If you're someone who's more sensitive to carbs and you like your carbs a bit lower, then naturally your fats are going to be higher. If you're someone who really likes to take in a lot of carbs, your carbs might be higher and your fats lower. So that's the really cool thing about this strategy here. The only macro you're really tracking is your protein. And then you can choose based off your lifestyle, based off the foods you like, and just based off your overall goals, how you want your fat and your carbs to be distributed. Because there is no right or wrong way, as long as you're not completely neglecting your fat, you can kind of go from there. And if you're tracking your calories, as long as your protein is met, we really don't care where the carbs and the fat are at. Okay, so hopefully this video helps, guys. It doesn't have to be a perfect science. I've done that before. We're trying to juggle all three macros at once, can be completely crazy, and one meal can throw them off balance. Instead, focus on your calories, focus on your protein. Don't forget to just make sure you don't completely disregard fiber, because it is very important. It's going to help you out, trust me, short term and long term. And then you can be a little bit more lenient with your carbs and your fat. This is going to be more flexible. This is going to make it much more sustainable to be able to do this long term. So hopefully this video helps. If you do like videos like this, do us a huge favor, like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.